It's my pleasure to welcome you here to the Clark Howard Show, where our mission is to serve you with advice and information that empowers you to make better financial decisions in your life. Now, we're going to start out today's show with my favorite opportunity to learn, to break bad habits, to enlarge my mind. Christa Stinks. I'm also going to discuss how I've changed the way I get my prescriptions to save money. Right. So now it's time for Christa Stinks.
I should have never encouraged you to speak.
You must think I'm pretty stupid.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe you're right, pal.
And also, you forgot to mention that later on you're going to talk about how you recently changed the way you get prescriptions and some new.
I did mention that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, you just zoned out on me.
I zoned out. Sorry.
I'm pretty dull.
Christa
so it's
Stinks.
really no. I'm pretty dull, so it's easy to zone out. I mean, you should see my family. You know, I'll be talking about something, and they're like, they're looking at their phones.
I wasn't
I'm a dull
doing
guy.
any of that. I don't know what happened to me.
I'm just dull. Okay.
Clark.
Just accept it.
Clark, you stink so much that you can't smell the lovely aroma of homemade soup. For health reasons, of course, you should avoid canned or packaged soup with its excessive amount of sodium and other unhealthful additives. But it's easy and fun to make your own soup at home. You can adjust any recipe, leaving out the salt, using low-sodium chicken broth, no salt-added canned beans, etc. Try it, Judy. And let me tell you something, Clark. Judy was one of at least 10 people who wrote in about this, about the soup specifically, that you can make your own soup and there is low-sodium soup. You hit a nerve.
All right, so, I weigh every day. I got to tell a soup story. So we were at a restaurant, and on Sunday, I break training, and I eat pretty much what I want. But I also try to be careful with sodium. But we were at a French restaurant, and they had this onion soup that people just rave about. So I get the onion soup, and the next morning, how much weight had I gained temporarily? Obviously.
You told me, so I'm not going to.
6 pounds. 6 pounds from that bowl of soup because of all the sodium. So, Judy, you are right. If I was not the laziest man in the world, it's not just the soup. We've had people write in about the problem with spaghetti sauce having high sodium. Mm-hmm. There was another thing I talked about. Oh, salad dressings.
Yeah.
Salad dressings.
But the soup hit a major nerve.
But
What's your favorite kind of soup?
We've heard about all these things.
What's your favorite kind of soup?
Oh, where do I start? So I mentioned the onion soup. Mm-hmm. I love potato soup. I love clam chowder. I love lobster bisque.
Do you like tomato bisque?
Yeah, I love tomato bisque.
I'm going to make you a low-sodium
But since I'm a southerner, you have to say tomato bisque. You can't say tomato.
You say tomato, I say tomato. Okay. Moving on to the next stink. Nothing too stinky, but on a recent podcast, you talked about your Costco Visa card being, quote, duplicated, but you still had your real card in your possession. You did not explain how a credit card gets duplicated. Thanks to you, my credit is frozen, so new cards can't be issued, but now I'm worried about a duplication. Is it simply a matter of procuring the victim's card number and security code on the back of the card? Thank you for all you do, Brian.
Yeah, Brian, that is it. There are various times. There's even been problems. This is terrible to say. Everybody who works in a restaurant is honest, but there are people who get paid at restaurants who are servers who, when they take your card to run it, they also surreptitiously run it through a little device on their phone that captures stuff, and then they sell off the information with the code and the expiration and the number and blah, blah, blah. There are many different ways that card numbers get intercepted. Of the forms of identity theft, this is the least serious of all. Account takeover fraud of a credit card is just a little bit of a hassle. You get a new card, new number. You're not responsible for any of the fraudulent charges as long as you stand up for yourself within 60 days.
Small criticism. I heard you suggest online banks as a way to increase your FDIC protection. These non-bank online companies that dish out your money to several real banks are at the mercy of the software platforms of the actual transactions. I'm sure you're aware the recent bankruptcy of one of those companies brought down a number of non-bank companies that pretended to be banks, and a lot of consumers have lost access to their funds. There are better ways to increase your FDIC protection than these non-bank online companies that look like banks. For example, the couple could have a joint account and then separate accounts for each of the partners, and all 3 accounts would have $250,000 in protection. Keep up the great work, Mark.
Mark, thank you, and that is true. The way you have accounts titled magnifies your $250,000 or multiplies your $250,000 in protection. What I've talked about in the past, what was called the CDARS program and is now called something else, is where you go to an FDIC-insured bank that's a participant in this correspondent banking program. You're not going through a non-bank intermediary like the problems that happen with Synapse and a lot of the apps. What you're doing in that case, it's called IntraFi now. Mm-hmm. When you go to an IntraFi participating bank that's FDIC-insured, your money goes into them, and then they use a record-keeping program to split your deposit out to fellow FDIC-insured participants in the program, and you're never with any non-FDIC-insured non-bank intermediary.
Clark, you smell like my shirt after a 3-hour run. When you suggest buying 2 separate flights to save money to a destination, most recently suggesting flying to the West Coast first, then on to Japan, you must let people know that the dangers of this plan. Specifically, if your first flight is delayed or canceled and you don't make your second flight, you will be treated as a no-show for the second flight and the entire round trip will be canceled. You are at the mercy of the second airline and they are not obliged to do anything for you. You're stuck at the intermediate point unless you can afford the price of a walk-up ticket. Your entire vacation will be lost. Additionally, if you're checking luggage, you need to leave the secure area to retrieve it and recheck it. Make sure your listeners allow plenty of time for all of this. Ray,
and maybe the last time I talked about it, when I talked about why we did the 2 tickets to Japan to cut the price by 60% of the trip, we went out a day ahead. I liked when I'm going to do an over-the-water trip to somewhere else, to another continent, and I'm going to go to an intermediate city to cut the cost by a fortune, I do an overnight in that city so that if there is a flight cancel, I'm not going to misconnect. I don't have to worry about check bags because I don't check a bag. I do carry-on only. But your point about the bags, true as well. On the return from Japan, instead of an overnight coming back, the domestic flight cost, relatively speaking, is so small that I do take the risk. And I had a 3-hour connect time from Japan Airlines to a U.S. domestic airline. In that case, it was Delta, back home. So I am willing to roll the dice on the return. I don't roll the dice on the going. And with cruises, I should mention as well, with cruises, always arrive in the port at least 1 day before the sailing of a cruise. Because if you miss the cruise, you miss the whole vacation because of a flight problem.
Christa Stinks, as Clark admits he knows nothing about coffee. Instead of those expensive coffee machines, try a $20 stainless steel mocha pot. It makes awesome coffee shop coffee on the cheap and nothing to break, so it should last forever. I did buy a $45 grinder from Costco to grind my own beans, but that's not necessary for great coffee. Susan.
Okay, coffee is like an intersection where we hear so much from people, isn't
Coffee
it?
is my life, like football's your life.
Well, football is my life. Training camp in just 2 more weeks.
And also, people did ask what machine I bought. Susan, close your ears. And I bought it, like I said, in 2020. Or actually, it was the end of 2019. And it was the Breville Barista Touch, which at that time retailed for, close your ears, Clark Howard, $800. I had a 20% off coupon at Williams-Sonoma where I bought it, and I had a leftover $150 gift card that someone had given me, so I ended up paying $500. It now retails for, well, I think it retails for more, but most people sell it for $1,000 now. So that's the one I have.
So you bought it. See how much money you saved? You bought it almost half price with all the things you said.
Amazing.
Man. So
Okay.
anytime you say Williams-Sonoma, I know there's nothing in there that I wouldn't pass out.
It's
a beautiful store, but
yeah. I've seen people
expensive.
selling these on Facebook Marketplace and other places, though. You might be able to get a used one if you like it. And you don't have to get the touch. I just like that one because it has a touch screen. And Why are you such a fearmonger when it comes to gift cards? You make it sound like 90% of the gift cards on the shelf are tainted. I've never had a problem with them, but I only buy and use a few a year. My wife, who works at school, gets dozens of them a year from students and parents, which I'm sure are bought off the shelf, and she has never had a problem. If gift cards are so unsafe, then the manufacturer, distributor, and retailer of the gift cards would address it. I bought a high-dollar gift card, $500, the other day, and was surprised by the security on the envelope it was in and the hologram printed on it. To tell people what to be aware of is okay, but to tell them that they're lucky they are not taken on every purchase is absurd. Larry.
Larry, thank you. Mathematically, you're probably right that I am an alarmist on the gift card thing. It's happening so much, and the industry knows that what's known as card draining is a very fast-growing crime, and there are all these software packages that crooks are able to buy very cheaply that help them drain these cards. So it is a chance of odds. If you took $500 and you bought a card and it turned out that it was worth zero, you would not be happy. And it wouldn't have to happen to you every day. But if it happened to you that the 500 was of your hard-earned money was now zero, you'd be upset and you'd be, why didn't Clark ever tell me about that? So yes, maybe I make it sound more draconian than it actually is, but it's important that people know that the gift card system is not secure at this point in the United States, and that the danger is ever present that you buy a gift card and you got nothing to show for it.
So if you're going to buy one, buy it from behind, like you have them activated at the store or restaurant or wherever it is, or you can get a Costco card. They're kept in the cage. If you're buying gift cards at a place like that or a warehouse club.
But the unprotected racks are where these problems are occurring overwhelmingly.
Please stop beating up on Vanguard, or at least give some more perspective for your listeners who continue to whine about Vanguard customer service. I've been a Vanguard investor for 8 years, and I am very happy with their services and low-cost investing platform. Maybe that's because I've gone to the trouble to use the online systems which are available and very helpful if a person is willing to take the time to learn to use them. My sense is that the complainers are the same folks who want their hand held by a person on the phone, or like you, still want paper statements. These things are fine if that's what you want, but they cost money and add expense to Vanguard's overhead. People who expect these additional services should be willing to pay for them. This will keep investing fees to a minimum for those willing to use their online tools and systems. I'm a regular listener and enjoy and appreciate your podcast, James.
James, thank you. You know, I love Vanguard, and to talk about the customer no service issues at Vanguard is painful for me because I love what Mr. Bogle created there. I love what they have been able to do to democratize investing. I mean, really, two people in this country changed investing in this country. One is Chuck Schwab, and the other is John or Jack Bogle. Some people like to call him John, some like to call him Jack. And they are the ones that really changed what had been a rich person's club, really a rich men's club, and opened it up to other people. I just think that Vanguard is in an echo chamber right now and not listening to the complaints that people are having.
Clark, your opinions on the post office stink, like things I can't repeat on a family show. You said on your show that 68 cents is not enough for the post office to be profitable. By the way, Clark, this is a sample of many, many posts that came in about this.
Every time I talk about the Postal Service, we get them.
USPS is not a business. It does not have a fiduciary duty to shareholders. It is not supposed to be profitable. It is constitutionally mandated, just like the military or legislature. You wouldn't expect either of them to be profitable, so why should the post office? Why, without the ridiculous congressional mandate to overfund their retirement program, which no other government agency or branch is required to do, they would be profitable and could actually lower their prices down to break even and drive increased competition amongst the private players in the market.
I don't even know what to say. The Postal Service, if you go into a post office, it looks like you walked into a rundown building from 1970. I mean, they have been starved for sufficient capital. And there are any of a number of reasons why I could go into, but we don't have enough time for all that. I want to tell you I appreciate the passion of all of you who posted about the Postal Service and the problems the Postal Service is having at this point. And the Postal Service was designed in a different time, the U.S. Post Office, constitutionally, at a different time and a different era, to try to pull together a country at a time that was hard for people to communicate with each other. We're in a different era, and it requires a different solution than we are right now. And if I ever get to do a civics podcast, we could have a big conversation about what I would do with the post office.
All right.
We're going to stop there?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
More to come next week. Not about the post office, but.
What? Maybe that will generate some more.
No, please. Go ahead.
Do they cuss at you in the post?
No.
Okay, well.
I just think,
But I love the passion.
Yeah.
I love it. And
do you
again,
agree that they're not supposed to be profitable? Do you agree with that? Because a lot of people said that.
So again, if you want me to
boy.
do a civics podcast, we can have that conversation another time.
Okay. I thought that was a yes or no. No.
All right, I will answer it.
Okay.
So, get ready. Clark.com/Clark Stinks to post. All right. So, as I said, we're in a completely different era, completely different time. And a lot of the reason for being at the post office, time has moved on. I mean, you think about instant communications of all kinds we have now that obviously did not exist in 1787. 1787, right. All the things involved with the reason the post office existed, all the circumstances have changed. And we have an era where we have so many different ways to communicate and so many different ways to move goods across this great nation of ours. We did not have FedEx and UPS in 1787. I mean, the whole circumstance has changed. And so, to my way of thinking, the Postal Service needs to be run as a business, like a business. And yes, there are constitutional responsibilities to see that they can serve every mailing address in the United States. That's something that they do not compete with others on. So there's a lot to unpack here. I just feel like the Postal Service as we knew it and as we loved it no longer can exist in that form. And I'll leave it there. Again, Clark.com/Clark Stinks. And coming up ahead, we're going to talk about something else that doesn't exist in the form it did. Prescription drugs. I want to tell you how I'm navigating very turbulent waters on prescription drugs. So prescription drugs are something, if you're lucky, you don't have to deal with regularly. Unfortunately, there are earthlings like me who have various medical conditions that pretty much mandate, in order to stay alive, that I take a variety of medicines. Good news. Most meds that most of us take are generic. They are not brand names. Of the long list of medicines I take one that is not available in generic form. I have, through my insurance, I have what's known as a pharmacy benefits manager, a PBM. PBMs are a very controversial thing where employers, not knowing how to handle this stuff, they contract it out. And PBMs say to the employers, hey, we're going to take care of this for you, and we're going to lower costs for you. That's the theory. But PBMs are involved in a very sordid underbelly of the prescription industry where they are getting kickbacks, and ultimately those kickbacks lead to additional costs for the consumer who's taking those meds. And so I have, again, one med I take that is only available at this point brand name. And so the PBM does save me money on it. Every other med I take is a generic. All those meds I choose to fill at Costco. It could be any of a number of places. It could be Mark Cuban's Cost Plus Drugs. It could be through Amazon's pharmacy program. It could be using GoodRx or one of GoodRx's competitors where you'd fill different places. There are a variety of things I could do. I could fill a lot of them in the Sam's Club program as a Plus member where I'd get the meds, certain meds for free. Walmart has very inexpensive generic medicines. So the point is, the only med I fill through my employer, the only one, is the one that is the brand name. And it saves me several $100s a year filling that one that way. Everything else, every other med is cheaper through Costco by a good amount than it is through the pharmacy benefits manager. And you'd find that through all these other outlets as well, that the PBM, the pharmacy benefits manager, on drugs that you take regularly, what are known as maintenance meds, that the employer plan almost always is going to be charging you more than you would pay just as a private payer buying from a discounter. Speaking of Amazon, Amazon has a program for Medicare patients where they pay $5 a month and they get a bunch of medicines at no additional cost. I mean, there are lots of these opportunities out there as long as you avoid the PBM boondoggle. And this is simple because you can go online and see what they're going to cost getting your meds these different ways. It is something that obviously needs to be fixed, and the simple way you fix it is you ban kickbacks. That the kickbacks the PBMs are getting be outlawed. I mean, so many kickbacks in so many industries are criminal events. Why is it that we have this corrupt system with the pharmacy benefits managers getting kickbacks? It shouldn't be. But you need to know that's how it works. And I challenge you, if you work for an employer who offers a pharmacy benefit, that you do the comparison shopping on your meds that are not brand names and see what they cost if you were to fill independently, not through your employer's benefit that they're offering you. And the employers, in their heart and soul, think they're doing the right thing for you. They don't realize, because they're busy running their businesses, they don't realize that they're cheating their very employees inadvertently by having this corrupt system of pharmacy benefits managers ripping them off on the 80% of prescriptions that are not brand name. It's your money, it's my money, and I want you to protect it. Krista?
Candy in Florida says, tell us about the new Team Cuban card from Cost Plus Drugs. Note that this card is a different process than going to Cost Plus Drugs.
So the Team Cuban card is kind of like a similar kind of thing to GoodRx. Mm-hmm. It's where through Mark Cuban's Cost Plus Drugs, you can buy drugs not from them. You can go to your local pharmacy and you get the negotiated rates that Mark Cuban's company has been able to negotiate on various meds. Again, the biggest savings are going to be on generics, and they're really transparent with the prices. You sign up, sign in, and you see like 20 different places or something.
Yeah, there's a lot of major grocery stores and are signed up so far. And so apparently, I mean, it looks like they're signing up people constantly. So you can check it out at teamcubancard.com and see what medications are covered. So,
because there are situations and there are circumstances where you can't wait for a med to be mailed to you when you're ill. It's not for a maintenance med. And that's the real benefit of GoodRx or the
Team Cuban
card. And
Okay.
other competitors like that
Yeah.
as well. And CVS, which is one of the biggest healthcare providers in the country that owns Aetna, they are really feeling threatened by all these discount cards. So now CVS has its own discount card for buying meds from them, not through your insurance.
more in your arsenal, better for you, right?
Right?
Joe in Connecticut says, prior to a recent hospital procedure, I received a call from the hospital financial person presenting their projection of what my financial responsibility for the cost of the procedure would be and requesting payment. They reported my portion would be over $6,000. They were taking into account our $4,000 deductible. When I challenged with examples of how at least a portion of our deductible has already been met, they claimed to not have any record of that. Ultimately, they got me to okay a charge for the $4K deductible. Certainly, I fully intend to meet my financial responsibility, but I'm used to addressing it once the dust has settled. Do you have any advice on how to better address this situation?
Yeah, and we had this last month, different numbers, a little bit different circumstance. This is becoming more and more standard operating procedure for a lot of hospitals where they are requiring that you pay your share, your estimated share, up front, or they will not schedule your surgery. If it's non-emergency surgery, more and more hospitals are saying, nope, and giving you this guesstimate. And then if the guesstimate is wrong, you are then having to fight with this giant hospital to get a refund of the excess that you've paid in. So this is a problem, and what you did challenging their math up front is exactly what you should be doing. And with non-emergency stuff, they're worried that balance bills don't get paid, and they want their money. And that's why they're front-loading it to you. And this is something that is, I wouldn't say commonplace, but is more and more common.
Jennifer in New Hampshire says, Clark, first I want to thank you for supporting the role of advanced providers, nurse practitioners, and physician assistants in healthcare. Second, I want to remind my fellow listeners that it's important that as you see a medical or dental provider for care, even if you've seen this person or clinic recently, you bring in all of your medications, prescription, over-the-counter, vitamins, supplements, herbals, inhalers, topicals, and eye drops to each visit. Lists in your record can be inaccurate due to data entry errors, system glitches, or many other reasons. If bringing in all the bottles is too cumbersome, an updated list, the Health or Emergency Info app on smartphones are great for this, or pictures of all the labels would be a great substitute. These lists should also be shared with all your pharmacies if you use more than one. The other pharmacies may not be aware of your other medications and may miss important drug interactions, which can impact how effective your medicines are for your conditions. And P.S., I just want to let Clark know that my 2 teen boys listen to the podcast in the car. They have asked about Roth IRAs and avoiding college debt. Thanks.
Okay, Jennifer, I love that they are benefiting from it. Now, I don't know if it's optional that they listen or you've made it mandatory in your household. I hope that it's something they want to listen to. But even if it's force-fed and they're asking those kind of questions, I guess that's a good result. And thank you for what you said here. I have, as someone who unfortunately spends too much time in doctor's offices, I have a dynamic list on my phone. And if I go to a new provider, the list is one I can email directly to them right then or text right then, and they can import it right into their system. Because of this problem with drug interactions, something being prescribed in that visit that would be potentially harmful, and it is really simple to do to have it on an Android or iPhone where that information can be transmitted right away instead of having to bring all your prescription bottles with you. I'll tell you though, I took nothing probably 12 years ago. Now I've got this list of meds. Wow. It's pretty depressing having to take all of them. But it's keeping me breathing, keeping me alive, keeping me here. So we'll take that, right?
Yes, we will.
Okay. Well, I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic weekend this weekend. And, you know, I know in a lot of the country it's been pretty hot lately. Go find a pool or a lake or something to hang out in and cool off. Just make sure it's an affordable visit to wherever you go. And know what we're about. You learning ways to save more and spend less and avoid getting ripped off. And we'll be at your service on Monday.